Ozzy turned 7 in the rainy season. By this time, Chika's compound had been expanded. New rooms, a proper kitchen inside, a small car, not new but working. Ozzy went to the best primary school in the local government. Adaizi had hired 2 girls to help in the stall. They had built something. Then Chika's uncle came to visit. He was a man who had been born into a time and a place that gave certain ideas the weight of truth. Not a cruel man, not specifically. More like a man who had swallowed a belief system whole and never once chewed it to check what was in it. He sat in Chika's new parlor on the good chair and accepted the cold drink that was brought to him and looked around at everything Chika had built. Then he looked at Chika. "All this is good," he said. "God has been faithful." Chika nodded. "But I want to ask you something. Who inherits it?" Chika said nothing. "Ozzy will grow up," the uncle continued. "She will go to school. She will be beautiful. A man will come and pay bride price and take her to his compound. And all you have built will go with her to another man's family." He leaned forward. "Chika, you need a son." These 3 words in that order. 3 words that every man in that context has been prepared since birth to hear as a verdict. Chika was quiet. Your father had sons, his father had sons, the name must continue. A man without a son is like planting a tree and not watering it. Beautiful now, but what happens in 20 years? Who carries the name? Who pours libation when you are gone? Ozzy was in the next room. She had been listening without meaning to, sitting still because she had learned young that when adults talk in those tones, you become invisible. She heard her name used as the reason her father needed more. She was 7 years old, and she heard it. Chika's uncle left an hour later. Chika sat in the parlor alone after he left. He looked at the walls he had built, the ceiling that did not leak, the television. He thought about the farm and what it had become. He thought about Adaizi's store and the money that came in weekly now. He thought about his son to give it to. The thorn his uncle had planted went in deeper that night. Chika told Adaizi he was going to see someone about a farm matter. He was not going about a farm matter. He went into the forest outside the village on a Saturday afternoon. He had heard the name of this man through channels that serious people use quietly. A native doctor. Not the roadside kind with hand-painted signs. The kind whose name you only hear when the situation is serious. The man's compound was inside the forest off a path that did not look like a path until you were already on it. Chika had been given instructions about where to turn. He followed them. The doctor was sitting outside when he arrived, old, thin in the way of people who eat only what they need. He did not seem surprised to see Chika. They sat. Chika explained what he wanted. A son. He framed it several ways before getting to the plain version. The doctor listened. "You already have a blessing in your compound," he said. "I know," Chika said. "I am grateful. I want more." The 2 things may not be able to exist at the same time. "What do you mean?" The doctor looked at him for a long time. "The force protecting your prosperity is attached to that child, to what she represents. If you reach past it, you disturb it." Chika thought about his uncle's words, the name, the lineage. 20 years from now, who pours the libation? "How do I reach past it?" he asked. The doctor told him. It required a ritual that Chika did not fully understand, and I will not describe in detail because some things should not be put into full sentences on the internet. What it meant in plain terms was this. Chika had to, in a spiritual and intentional sense, declare that his daughter was not enough, that what she represented was insufficient. He had to mean it, not just perform it. The force, the doctor explained, does not respond to action. It responds to the heart beneath the action. Chika sat with this for a long time. Then he asked, "Will my daughter be harmed?" The doctor said, "That depends on how deep you go." Chika went home. He tried to forget the visit. For 3 weeks he tried. He slept badly. He watched Ozzy play in the compound and felt something pull in opposite directions inside him. Then his uncle came back, and this time he brought Chika's mother, an elderly woman who had buried 2 children and raised 3, and carried her own grief quietly for decades. She sat in the parlor and took Chika's hand and said, "Give me a grandson before I die." He went back to the forest the following week. Edaize became pregnant 4 months later. The scan at 12 weeks said boy. Chika stood in the hospital corridor after and leaned against the wall. He felt something that he would later describe as relief, but that was already mixing with something darker underneath. He told himself everything was fine. The farm said otherwise. It started with small signs. One section of yam that came up rotten. Chika dismissed it. Then a larger section. Then the worms came, the kind that move through soil and leave it empty. He treated it with what he knew. The worms came back. Edaize's stall had its first bad week, then its second. Then one of her regular customers, a man who had driven 40 minutes specifically for her pepper soup every 2 weeks for 3 years, stopped coming. She called him. He did not pick up. The money slowed. The quiet that came back into the house was different from the quiet of before. The quiet of before had been empty and sad. This quiet was full of something that sat in the corners of rooms. Oze got sick in the 5th month of Edaize's pregnancy. It came fast, fever first, then weakness. A 7-year-old girl who had run everywhere her whole life was lying still on a mat, and the stillness was wrong in a specific way that Edaize felt in her chest. They took her to the hospital, tests, results that did not fully explain the presentation. The doctor used words like "we're monitoring" and "it's unclear at this stage," which are the words doctors use when they are also worried. Edaize sat beside Ozi's hospital bed one night and looked at her daughter's sleeping face and understood. She understood in the way women in that context understand things, not with documentation, not with proof, but with a knowing that goes down to bone level. When Chika came to the hospital the next morning, Edaize looked at him. She did not shout, she did not cry. She just looked at him with an expression that asked the question without using any words. He looked away. She had her answer. Mama Nkem arrived at the hospital. Nobody called her. Nobody told her which hospital or which ward or which bed. She arrived because she arrived, which was the only explanation that made sense for a woman like her. She sat beside Ozzy. She looked at the child for a while. Then she looked at Chika. "You chose pride," she said. Quiet. No judgment in it, strangely. Just naming what had happened. Chika could not look at her. "The blessing was never fragile," she continued. "It was built to last. What broke it was not the son. The son is innocent. A child cannot be a sin." She paused. "What broke it was the day you held your daughter and found her insufficient. The day you looked at everything she had brought into your life and decided it was not enough. That is the moment the light shifted." The hospital room was very quiet. The force that protects does not punish. It only reflects. When your heart was grateful, it reflected gratitude back as harvest and health and prosperity. When your heart became ashamed of what it had been given, it reflected that too. Chika was on the floor. Not metaphorically. He had slid off the chair somewhere in the middle of her speaking and was sitting on the hospital floor with his back against the wall. "My daughter," he said, and his voice broke on the second word. He looked at Ozzy on the bed. "Ozzy, ne, I am sorry." She opened her eyes at the sound of her name. She looked at him with the direct, undefended look that sick children have when they are too tired for anything except the truth. "Are you angry at me, Daddy?" she asked. The question destroyed him. "No," he said. He moved to the bed and held her hand. "I was never angry at you. I was foolish. It is not the same thing, but I am going to spend the rest of my life showing you the difference." Mama and I watched this. Then she stood up. She said one more thing before she left. "The son will be fine. He carries no guilt. Love him. But understand that the blessing did not come because Ozzy was first. It came because she was chosen. Chosen things do not like to be treated as temporary. She walked out.
You won't believe how this turned out in part 3. Watch it now.